We're up to Daf Peiches and Aleph by the two dots. So Tana Rabbanan, the chisohu means you have to cover the blood. Milamed shedama nitas v'shala sakin chayv chasus. That even if the blood splatters or the blood's left on the knife, you have to cover it. This Tanakama Shita is that you have to cover all the blood, even if it's splattered, even if it's all the blood has to be covered. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. If you remember from the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda holds as long as you covered some of the blood. You don't have to go for splattering. You don't have to, as long as some of the blood is covered, the blood that's in front of you is covered. Even mixes. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Emasai bisman she'in sham dam elahu, al yesham dam shelo yehu patim l'chasas. Rabbi Yehuda says, as long as you covered some of the blood, yaitza. And then you have Tani Idach, and then there's a third shita. So we've had all the blood, we've had some of the blood, and then we're going to have a third shita, which is a Shem Gamliel, who holds the dam hanefesh, that you have to cover all of the lifeblood, which is the blood of the first blood that the animal dies. That blood needs to be covered. So it's not some, it's not all, it's the essential blood. It says Tani Idach v'chisahu, Melamid shekol dam chayv l'chasas. Mekan amru dam hanitis me'algfayim shchayv l'chasas. That's the Tanakama Shita. That any blood that's splattered on the walls has to be covered. Amru v'shem gamliel. Shem Gamliel says, as long as you cover the dam hanefesh, you're fine. There's three different shitas: all, some, or dam hanefesh. The dam hanefesh, they knew that it splattered out the first spurt. I guess you have to watch it. I don't think it's a different color. I think you just have to monitor where it is. What's the machlokes? The answer is, the machlokes is, how do you translate damai? Rabbanan Savri Damai Kol Damai. Damai means all of the blood. Rav Yehuda Damai Afilu mixes Damai. Rav Yehuda says Damai is some of the blood. And Rav Shem Gamliel is Damai Hamyucha. Damai means the blood, the lifeblood. So there's three different interpretations of the word Damai. Okay. New Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Bameh mechasin ubameh ein mechasin. What material can be used to cover blood and what material cannot be used to cover blood? Can you use a napkin? What does it mean to cover blood? Zak the Mishnah. Mechasin bezevel hadak, you can cover with fine manure, ubechol hadak, or with fine sand, besid ubecharasis, with lime or with ground pottery, b'levena mugufa shekotchan, or with a brick or earthenware cover of a pot that were crushed. I mean, it has to be covered with very fine material. Aval ein mechasin, but the opposite, all of these materials that are coarser and thicker are no good. So therefore, loy bezevel hagas, loy bechol hagas. So all these things are the same materials, they're just thicker, like larger pieces. That's no good. And by the way, covering a pot over it, meaning just putting a pot cover on top of the blood, even though it's covered, that's not covered. That's not covered.
We're looking for a substance that's able to absorb the blood, or are we just looking to...
No, it just has to be close to what the Torah describes, which is dirt. So it has to be in the type of dirt that the Torah describes. They use sawdust practically, yeah, I believe so. So then the Mishnah says, Klal Amr gives a rule. If something can grow in it, meaning if a plant can grow in this material, then you could use it, if not. That's a Shem Gamliel Shita. Okay. By the way, he doesn't necessarily disagree with what we said. He's just telling you a rule to remember. If plants can grow in it, not that it's used to grow plants, it's not soil, but plants can technically grow in a shasad chak from this material, so then it works.
It's usually because, I can imagine...
Okay. Zak the Gemara, Hechi dami choladak. So he said you have to use fine sand and not coarse sand. So what's defined as fine and what's defined as coarse? So Amar Rabbi Chanan, Rav Yechanan, Kol she'en hayayit tzarich lekachan. Any sand that if the potter is using to make pottery, in order to make pottery you need crushed sand. If he doesn't crush it anymore, meaning if he doesn't have to use a machine to crush it, if it's already crushed, you're fine. Okay. Now that's first version. Some have a slightly different version, that instead of saying what's considered fine sand, the question was what's considered coarse sand. That the Mishnah said you're not allowed to use coarse sand, and to that, the question was what's considered coarse sand. Amar Achan, Rav Yechanan, Kol shayotze tzarich lekatche. that if the potter needs to crush it, it's considered coarse. So the first version is that fine is that it doesn't need to be crushed. The second version is that coarse is that it needs to be crushed. So it's very, very similar. So my benayu, what's the practical difference between these two versions? The cases where the sand needs to be crushed but doesn't need to be crushed, and the mifrach efruche, and that is that even if you need to crush, you can crush it with your hand, meaning it's a little clumpy. So according to the first version, that if anything that needs to be crushed, this doesn't need to be crushed anymore. You can use your hand. But according to the second version, that it's anything that is still being crushed, this is still being crushed. So it's a nafkamina between these two versions of whether you can use clumpy-ish, but it doesn't need a machine to crush it. You can just crush it with your hand. So it's kind of coarse, kind of clumpy. Tan Rabbanan v'chisahu yochel yechisenu ba'avonim. You might think you could just use large stones to cover the blood, or yichba lavis akli, or to cover it with a kli. Tamalaimer ba'afar. Ba'afar means in earth, in dirt. Heinli ala afar. So it says afar. So it says dirt. Now, if it just says afar, minayin l'rabos zevel hadak v'chol hadak. How do I know they include manure, and fine sand? Shchikas avonim, shchikas charosis, grinded stone, grinded pottery, unuura pishtin dakin, and fine charred flax. Go to the next page. Unasur shal charoshin daka. Or fine sawdust, v'sid charasis, or fine clay, leveina magufa shekachan, or a brick that was crushed up, meaning that's not soil. Tamalaymar v'chisahu. So the word ba'afar is earth. V'chisahu is to include all these other materials. Now, if we're including all these other materials, you might think you should be able to include coarser materials. Yachol shani marbe avzevel hagas v'chol hagas shchikas kli matachos, or grinded metal, or levena magufa shaloi kachan, or bricks that were not crushed, v'kemach v'subin umursan, or flour. Meaning, so we're including crushed of those materials. How do I know non-crushed of those materials, or flour is no good? Tamaloi marbe afar. Now, so you have ba'afar and you have v'chiso. Ba'afar is minimizing, v'chiso is maximizing. So we said it's to include crushed sand, crushed dung, crushed manure, crushed pottery, but not coarse sand, not coarse manure. No. So the Gemara says, why do I include some and not include others? Meaning, what's the rule here? I'm excluding flour, but I'm including crushed, pottery. What's the difference? What's the rule? So the answer is anything that is type of dirt, meaning that plants can grow in, right? Earth, the quality of earth is that it can promote growth. Any material that plants can grow in, b'shas adchak, that counts. If they can't grow it, apparently, I guess b'shas adchak, if you put seeds and put some, I guess you put sawdust around the plant. I guess it'll grow. Okay. Now the Gemara just has a question. You have the word ba'afar and you have the word v'chiseyu. So we're saying ba'afar is dirt and v'chiseyu is to include all the other materials that plants grow in. So says the Gemara, why don't you say the following? Ema v'chiseyu klal. V'chiseyu means to cover, which is a klal. Afar, dirt, is a prat. Prat, a klal uprat, ein b'chlal, mamasha b'frat. Why don't you make it a klal and a prat? In which case you have a klal, which is to cover. You have a prat, which is dirt. Klalu prat, ein b'chlal, amasha b'frat. It has to be dafka the prat, which is dafka dirt, nothing else. In other words, why are we not employing the rules of klal and prat here? So let me explain a little bit outside. The answer is klal and prat is where you have the following situation. You have a klal, which I understand what it means, but it's just general, right? I get it. If I tell a child, this is the klal, they'll understand what it is. They'll understand what Hashem wants. It's just very inclusive. It's inclusive of A, B, and C. Then you have the prat, which is, let's say, B. So you say, okay, klal and prat, it has to be B. That's when the klal is understandable on its own. It stands on its own. In our situation, it's not a klal and a prat. I'll tell you why. The chiseu means to cover. I don't know what that means. Because I'll give you an example. Can I take a pot cover and just put it on top of the blood? Would that count? No. Why not? Because Ba'afar tells me, Ba'afar is not a klal and a prat because the klal does not stand on its own. The prat explains the klal. It doesn't just minimize the klal. Do you understand what I mean? Anytime you have a klal that I don't understand fully what it means on its own, it's not that I get it, but it's just very inclusive. I don't understand what it means because v'chaseu means to cover. I don't know what that means to cover. Does that mean just putting a blanket on top of it? Does that mean closing the door? Does that mean, what does it mean? Ba'afar is not a prat of a klal. Ba'afar is clarifying the klal. It's not minimizing the klal, it's clarifying the klal. Anytime it's clarifying the klal, you don't use the rules of klal and prat. I'll give you an example. You have a klal that says, bring from any kosher animal a korban. So I know what that means. It means bring a korban from any kosher animal. Then the prat would say, dafka a sheep. Okay. So the klal stands on its own. I understand it. It means bring a korban from a kosher animal. Now, it's inclusive. It's large because it could include a chicken. It can include a cow. It can include a sheep. Then the pasuk prat says sheep. Okay, fine. But over here, the klal, I don't know what it means. It says cover. Right? It says, can you cover this? You said, with what? Not with anything. I don't know what covering means, because does covering mean with something that absorbs it? Does covering means just I don't see it? So because the prat is needed to clarify the klal, it's not a rule of klal and prat. It says Amar Amari Mishum Dahavi Klal Hatzarich Lefrat V'chol Klal Hatzarich Lefrat Ain't Donos Klal. That's by the way we say it every day in davening. Klal Hatzarich Lefrat. It means a klal, but you need the prat to define it, to explain it, not to minimize it, but to clarify it. There is no rule of klal and prat in such a situation. Darush Rav Nachman bar Rav Chizda Ein Mechasen B'Davar Shezoyrin Bay Umatzmiach. So it seems. This seems to be a more minimizing view. Till now, we've said that you can grow it in anything you could use kisei adam in anything that could technically promote growth. Now, one of the cases was sand, coarse sand. Now, plants do not generally grow in sand, but it could, like sawdust, right? Comes Rav Nachman bar Rav Chizda, he has a slightly different version. He says it has to be something shezoyrin by, something that is used as planting material. Now, when you go to what's it called? What was it called where they sell plants? No, yeah, one of these type of stores, and you say, "Can I get some sand to plant stuff?" But what are you talking about? You use soil. In other words, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak is not saying that anything that can grow, anything that is used for growing. Now, that's much more specific. That's much more dirt centric than. So it would exclude sand. Okay.
This is different than we said before about the near Rabbi.
Yeah, because this is saying that you can't use sand. It has to be something that is used to plant in, not something that something can plant in. So this would exclude sand. Our Mishnah said sand, by the way. So says the Gemara, Amar Rava, Rava said, Hai bocha. This is untrue. The statement is incorrect. So says, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, L'Rava, Rav Nachman says, my bocha. Why is it untrue? I know I'm the one who said it. It was based on the following brisa. There's a brisa that kind of sounds like what I'm saying. What's the brisa? Because the brisa says like this: if someone is traveling in the desert, and he has nothing to use for kisei adam. Stop. I've been to a desert a couple times. Right? You were born and raised in a desert. Right? In a desert, can you not find sand? Of course, you can find sand. So it says, if you're in the desert and you have nothing to do kisei adam, so what do I do? What do you mean? Why can't you use sand? It must be this brisa holds you can't use sand. Why? Because this brisa is of the opinion that it's not just something that something can grow in; it's something that's used for growth. This was the source of Nachman bar Yitzchak, not like our Mishnah. So let's just do the brisa. So you're in the desert and I have nothing to do kisei adam. Now the halacha is if you can't do kisei adam, you can't shecht. We can't just say shecht and no, you get something. So what do? I can't use sand according to this brisa. I need something that people actually use for planting, that is used to promote growth. So apparently, sheichek dinar zav u'mechaseyu. You could grind up gold, a golden dinar. The reason being is because the pasuk says dirt. Anything that is defined as dirt is acceptable, right? Sand not, because it's not dirt, but dirt is acceptable, right? It doesn't matter, whatever, even if you say, I don't use this soil. It's soil, yeah? Soils for sure are good. Apparently there's a pasuk in the Torah that says that gold can be called dirt. So if you take a golden dinar and you'd have to grind it up and use it for kisei adam. Similarly, if you're on a boat, you don't have dirt to do kisei adam, you could burn your garment and use the ash. So in other words, you can use a grind up gold or ash. Both are called dirt. Because according to this brisa, this is where Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak got it from, it's not just enough to use something that something can grow in. It has to be dirt, or something at least that's defined as dirt. So it says the Gemara, Bishler Meseref Talisa Mechasa. I understand why you could burn your garment and use it for kisedam, because that's ash. And ash is called dirt. Eshkechin Afer de Ikru Offer. I always find this confusing. Afer with an aleph is ash, Offer with an ayin is dirt. They're used interchangeably, because as we'll see in a few moments, the pasuk says by kisedam it'll use offer and afer, so both are acceptable. Eladinas of minolan, but how do you know that a golden dinar is called dirt in the Torah? So says the Gemara, Amrav Zera va'afrois zahav loy, and it had earth of gold, it had dirt of gold. So you see the Torah defines gold. It's called gold. And once it's called the dirt, it's gold. Here's the thing. According to this, while I don't know if you can, I'm sure you probably could, but even if you can't use it for growth, if it's called dirt in the Torah, then that's dirt. I mean, that's dirt, you know.
So we're saying that any because the pasuk.
Correct. Says the Gemara, Tan Rabbanon, Ein mechasin ela ba'afar. According to this brayso, you have to use dirt. Divrei Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai says it has to be used dirt only. Now, Beis Hillel oimrim matzinu efer shekaru afar. Beis Hillel says you could use ash as well, because ash and earth are called the same thing. Where do we find the shenemar? Because the pasuk says regarding the paraduma, it says that you take the earth of the animal. Now you don't take the earth of the animal, you take the ash of the animal, right? You burn the animal, you use the ashes, and yet it says earth. So you see that earth and ash are use terminology of the same thing. Beis Shammai, how does he respond?
I wouldn't consider like
No, no, that's the point. The Torah is telling you, it's telling you a rule throughout the Torah that anytime you need dirt or need ash, you could use either. Now, how does Beis Shammai respond? Because they say you cannot use ash. So they say the pasuk does not call ash dirt. It says Efer Sreifas. Efer Sreifa Ikri, Efer Stamaloi Ikri. Ash is not called earth. It's called earth of burning. It's not the same. Anytime you need the word earth only, ash is out. Tana, Haisifu Alayim, they added to the brayso of acceptable materials, Hashachar, Vakachol, Vanikras Psulin, charcoal, and other type of millstones that are scraped up, V'ish Oimrim Av HaZarnich, and some say also Zarnich, whatever these things are. Amar Rava, B'schar Shamar Avram Avinu V'anochi Ofav Efer. When Avram Avinu said that I am Anochi Ofav Efer, I'm but dirt and ash, Zach, because he described himself in such levels of bittul, Zachu Banav L'shtei mitzvahs. Klal Yisrael was zeicha to two mitzvahs, Efer Para V'afar Soita, the ashes of the Para Aduma and the dirt of the Soita. Meaning that, okay. So says the Gemara, so those are the two mitzvahs that Klal Yisrael was zeicha. So here's the question, V'lichshav nami afar kisei adam. What about the dirt of kisedam? Why is that not listed? He said Anochi Offer Ve'efer because he described himself in that way. He was zeicha to two mitzvahs. He was zeicha to Efer Paraduma and the offer of Saita. So what about the offer of kisedam? It says the Gemara Hasam Hechsha Mitzvah Ika Hanaleka. Over there it's a mitzvah, but you don't actually get anything from it. What I mean is like this. When you shecht an animal, yeah, could you eat the animal? Yeah. And if you do kisadam, could you eat the animal? Yeah. And if you don't do kisadam, could you eat the animal? Yeah. You don't get anything worldly. You see, the other two mitzvahs, para adumi, you know what you get? I'm now tahar. I now have access to areas that I couldn't go to. Saita now gets to be with her husband again. So it's not just mitzvahs, it's mitzvahs that have practical olam hazeh goodness. Kisadam doesn't. Kisadam is a mitzvah, but there's no practical good in Olam Hazeh, and therefore it doesn't make the list. We're trying to say that Avram Avinu didn't just get mitzvahs, but he was able to have mitzvahs that have tangible hana in Olam Hazeh. Just to finish up, Amar Rava, B'schar she'amar Avram Avinu, the Mischar of Avram Avinu saying, Imichut v'atzorech na'al, that after the war, the 4 kings and the 5 kings, he didn't want to take anything, and he said, I won't even take a thread or a shoelace. He didn't want to benefit from the Mulchama because he wanted to give glory to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the schar of saying thread or a shoelace, Zachu Banu l'shtei mitzvahs. He was zeicha children to 2 mitzvahs. L'chut shel tchelas, the thread is tchelas, and ritzua is tefillin. And the strap, so a thread or a shoelace is referring to the thread is tzitzis, and the shoelace, which is leather, is tefillin. So says the Gemara, and by the way, and as we said before, these are not just mitzvahs, these are mitzvahs that have goodness in this world. So I understand tefillin. What's the goodness of tefillin? So the Gemara says, a famous Gemara, the pasuk says the whole world will see you and fear you. That when the Goyim see the tefillin on the head of the Jewish people, it causes fear. This is, by the way, this is the Gemara that the Lubavitch Rebbe, when he started the tefillin campaign, putting tefillin on people. When did he start it? Now we're used to it because Chabad does it for a lot of time. The tefillin campaign was started right before the 6-Day War. Because he said, because that was when the whole Eretz Yisrael was being surrounded and everyone's very scared. And he said, the Gemara tells us that if you want to have, that the Jewish people should be feared, put tefillin on. So the soldiers would wear tefillin, that would instill fear. In Olam Hazeh, as you see from this Gemara. That's the good of tefillin. What's the good of tzitzis? What tangibly is good about tzitzis in this world? So says the Gemara, why is tcheles blue of all colors? Why is it blue and not red? Because the tcheles is color of the ocean. And the ocean is the same color as the sky. And the sky is the same color as sapphire. So therefore, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees Klal Yisrael wearing tefillin, wearing tzitzis, it reminds HaKadosh Baruch Hu of the Kisei HaKavod, and reminds Hashem of the glory of the Kisei HaKavod, and it brings down Shefa and Bracha to Klal Yisrael.